This is something that we talked about in Sabbath School at White Memorial. So, Pastor Manny, thanks again. You give us a lot of content on this channel.
Yes.
We're going to go to John 6, verse 19.
When they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they saw Jesus approaching the boat, walking on the water, and they were frightened.
Okay, so a little bit of historical or geographical information here. This Sea of Galilee that they're crossing is about 7 or 8 miles across. So how far have they gone out?
About halfway?
Halfway. So they are at the farthest place they can be from land.
Right? Yes,
right?
Either
so
way.
They're in the middle of nowhere, literally. And this is when they see Jesus walking toward them. And then in verse 20, go ahead and read that.
But he said to them, "It is I. Do not be afraid."
Okay, so there was some fear going on here. And Jesus is telling them, don't worry about it. It's me. It's me. Now, we have other accounts of this story, like in Matthew. Usually when I think of this story, I think of the version in Matthew. This is the story when Peter walked out on the water. This is the story when the storm was so rough that they couldn't handle it and they were freaking out and they see Jesus walking on the water and they think he's a ghost. John doesn't talk about any of that because John has this thing where he just focuses on a concept, often a theological concept. Because remember, what is the goal of John writing this book, right? He said, I could have written a bunch more stuff. We saw a bunch more stuff than what I wrote down, but I wrote this, and y'all who have been following us this whole quarter, you know this is in John chapter 20, verse 31, right?
That you may believe, and in believing you may have life.
Yes. So John has a very particular goal. He's not here to be a reporter to tell you all the who, what, when, where, why, how. He's here to make an argument that Jesus is the Messiah. You need to believe him and have eternal life. So he cuts out all those details and he just does this. In verse 20, he said, "It's me. Don't be scared. I got you." And then go ahead and read verse 21.
Then they were willing to take him into the boat, and immediately the boat reached the shore where they were heading.
They were in the middle of the lake, but it says immediately when he got on, immediately they were there where they were going. Is John just confused? Like he forgot all the details about Peter and about the storm, about Jesus calming down the storm as soon as he got in the boat and them rowing back home? Did he forget all of that? Or did he say, no, those details might just make people think about stuff that I'm not talking about. And this is what I'm talking about. As soon as Jesus got on the boat, immediately the boat was at the land to which they were going. Is John saying that as soon as you have Jesus, as soon as you are with Jesus, you have arrived at your destination, regardless of where you are? Regardless of how much rowing there is still to do, regardless of how much storm there is or there is not, regardless of everything else, when you have accepted Jesus and you are with Jesus, you have arrived at your destination.
It literally says there, then they were willing to take him into the boat, and immediately. Then they were willing, and immediately.
Yes. Immediately, they were where they were going. They had arrived. This is the gospel, Jim. Jesus is not the way to something. Jesus is not the way to life. He's the way of life. He is just where you are at because you have arrived. He is home.
So if you want to take your analogy to the practical level, these guys, John and Arnold, in their lives are rowing. We're in the middle of nowhere. Jesus shows up. And the moment Jesus shows up, we have arrived. Over and against those who say that Jesus is the empowerer, so I can continue to row.
So that you can eventually
arrive. In the old
arrive.
days, I was rowing, I didn't have Jesus. But now I have Jesus. But Jesus is simply a mechanism because I still got to cross this river, this lake. I still got to get home. So Jesus will now give me the power to row, and he's going to calm the storm so that I can row the boat through his power. No, that's not what John is saying here. John is saying that when Jesus arrived in the boat, immediately you were home.
Yes,
that's crazy.
Cool. So good. That is exactly what I was thinking. Yes. Yeah, we had this idea that Jesus gives us the power to get the job done. Jesus gives us the power to keep on rowing until we make it home. He who endures rowing to the end will be saved. But it turns out when you have Jesus, you're at the end. How you like that? When you have Jesus, you have arrived at your destination. You're there. Is there rowing still? Yeah, there's rowing still while you are there. The natural man does not understand this.
No, there was this beneath and above concept that John's talking about. He divides his book into, like, you guys are from down here, I'm from up there, right? And the difference is the rowing versus the belief. Down here, the beneath mentality is works, 613 laws, do better, and get there. The above mentality is John 6. Later on, he's going to say, what is the work of God? This is the work of God, to believe in him who he had sent. Because once they believed him and let him in their boat, they were home.
Yes.
You're home.
Yes. That's why I decided that this bonus material is actually the meat of this lesson, which is Jesus is it. He's everything, right? So he's not the way to something else. He is the way that you live in. When we get Jesus, we have arrived.